Good morning to the Kingdom Builders community. We are back and better than ever, rather. It is Tuesday morning, and we're so excited to have you joining us wherever you're connected right now on the Zoom call. We greet you in the mighty name of Jesus. Thank you so much for jumping on with us today. It is going to be a powerful topic that we're going to be diving into. So please, if you're connected today, let us know in that chat this morning that you're connected, and we can see a lot of your names that are jumping on this morning. So I want to just greet a couple of you if I can. Good morning, Tristan, Madinga. Good morning, Lonwabo. Good morning. Who else is on with us? Is it Jahinda? If I mispronounce your name, please do forgive me. Tembi is connected. Zelda Mason. Zelda, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for jumping on with us as well. Pastor Llewellyn is connected. We greet you, Pastor Llewellyn. Thank you for jumping on. Mawande is connected. Nonjebo is connected. Esther, good morning. Sasona Keti is connected today as well. Helene is on. Thank you so much for jumping on with us today. I'm excited and privileged again to be on set with my father. So, Dad, thank you so much. Again, I said to you last week, thank you for joining me, but I feel like I'm joining you. No, it's going to be a great time today.
It's good to be here. Good morning, Kingdom Builders. Looking forward to this session. We're going to talk about purchasing a motor car, and there's more to it than meets the eye.
That's right. We're going to get into an interesting topic today, and so I hope that you're ready to take down some notes. Just a couple of details, then I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get right into it because we want to make this moment as powerful as ever. We want to package it with content and be intentional because your time is very valuable. You know, you can always make more money, but you can never make more time. And so every moment we have together is valuable, and we want to just thank you for setting this time aside to join us on the Kingdom Builders podcast. We want to encourage you as well to be engaged with Kingdom Builders. Make sure that you've joined us on the community group. Please make sure that you're a part of that. Please make sure that you're engaged with us on social media as well. There will be details that will come on your screen. You can follow us on social media, on Instagram. Please go ahead and check us out there. Stay up to date with us. But one of the most precious places and the most valuable places is the Kingdom Builders community. You can receive all of the information right there. And then lastly, we've got Revival 26 that is starting this coming Sunday all the way through from the 28th of June through to the 7th of July. And it is going to be incredible. We've got amazing guests that are traveling in. And I believe it is the next week, Thursday, that is going to be our Kingdom Builders Day. So we want to invite you to be a part of it. It is going to be a time of equipping and empowering. There'll be more news and more information unfolding in the next couple of days. But we want to encourage you to be a part of it. God is going to do something so significant in your life and in the lives of his people that we're very, very stirred for that in Jesus' mighty name. So if you are excited and if it is that you're ready for Revival 26, would you go ahead, and I can't help it, this is who I am, would you drop a fire emoji? I'll say it whatever live stream I'm on. Drop a fire emoji. Even all of our business people, drop a fire emoji in the chat on Zoom today. Helene van Kaken is reacting. I know that Helene is going to be traveling down with her family, with her husband. We're excited to have you guys right here in East London, all the way from Grahamstown. So let's get into the content, and let me pray for us this morning. Father, I thank you. We declare that this time is blessed because you're here. Your presence is here. I pray for wisdom. I pray for revelation. Pray for insight. And I thank you that through this empowerment of knowledge, our lives are changing. To make good choices, to receive wisdom, and in all our getting, to get understanding, that we might build your kingdom in this last window of time. I thank you for it, and I thank you for ministering to your people today. Just the spirit of entrepreneurship, just ideas and strategy to flow throughout this entire podcast, we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And everybody says amen and amen. Flesh is dropping fire. I see Kevin is with us today as well. Pastor Llewellyn is excited. And so if you just jumped on today, we greet you in Jesus' mighty name. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic. I'm very interested. I've had the privilege, obviously, to be the son of my father. And so I know a lot of the information we're going to speak into today, but it's such powerful wisdom. We're dealing with the topic of buying a vehicle. And my dad is a bit dramatic in how he set it up. He said, buying a vehicle, consider this. One of the favorite things, or one of my dad's favorite words before he drops bars, before he drops wisdom, is consider this. So today we're going to consider some things, and I believe that wisdom is going to come. And I want to just start off from the very beginning, and I want to ask this question because, Dad, in the society that we live in right now, and we dealt with it a little bit on Sunday, and we were firing shots a little bit on Sunday, and we live in a time of people trying to fake it to make it, and all of these elements. And so I want to kind of start off by asking the question, is a car an investment?
That's a great question. And the answer to that is it depends on what car you're buying.
Correct.
I guess if you've got your hands on an original Model T Ford, you've probably got an investment because there's going to be some curiosity value, there's going to be sentimental value, and there's definitely going to be collector's value.
Yes.
But for the most part, Niall, I would say that absolutely a vehicle is not an investment.
Sure.
In fact, it's the opposite. It depreciates. And it depreciates very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to buy a motor car, and with all respect to motor vehicle salesmen, okay, let me just apologize before I start. But the guy will tell you that this car has tremendous trade-in value. It retains its value until you bring it back.
And then they'll say, "Oh, sorry,
the market has changed."
The market has majestically changed all of a sudden.
I don't mean to be nasty, but I mean but the market does change.
It does
too,
yes.
and obviously models change, and so you're never going to really get your money back.
Okay.
So when you buy a motor car, actually what you're doing is you're paying a glorified rent.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
It's true.
So let's start the discussion. Let me start by making a pretty categoric statement. The best way to buy a motor car is to pay cash.
Okay. Yeah.
Just pay cash. There is no better feeling than when you go and buy a car, you pay cash, and you get in the car and you drive it off the floor, knowing
it's yours.
It's yours.
Yeah.
That's it. I have no monthly commitment other than providing for the servicing, putting fuel in the vehicle, insuring the vehicle, but I don't have to pay for it. I have paid for it.
Yeah.
I'm driving away in my brand new car or my second-hand car. It doesn't matter if that's a lot of people buy second-hand vehicles. There's nothing wrong with that. The euphemism is pre-used or pre-owned.
That's right.
But really, at the end of the day, it's yours and you've paid for it. There's no better feeling than that. And so then the question is, well, geez, how do I buy a car cash? Well, sometimes it's better to buy one that's cheaper than one that's more expensive.
Yes.
So if your personal policy is to pay cash, well, then buy the car that you've got the cash for.
Yep.
On Sunday, you hit it pretty hard, and I mean, you were ringing my bell.
Yeah.
Because for many people, the car that they drive is a status symbol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's all about putting a facade out there.
It's like a Hollywood set. You know, it's two-dimensional. It looks three-dimensional, but it isn't. It's two-dimensional. And actually, when you peel away the set, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are driving vehicles that they can ill afford. They're probably up to their neck in debt in order to have the vehicle, just to impress people who aren't really invested in them anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's this whole social custom that we live in where we've got to impress people, you know?
If I may just add something, and not to push ahead, but
no, sure.
I want to make it clear as well. There's nothing wrong with having nice cars.
Sure.
I'm all for it. I'm all for you having a beautiful vehicle. We're all for you having a beautiful vehicle. But you need to be ready for it. You need to have the resources to sustain it, where it's not, not something that keeps you from sleep. You lay your head at rest at night and all you're thinking is, oh Lord, it's almost the end of the month and the debit note's going to be going off and I'm not sure if I have it.
If you are struggling to pay the installment for the vehicle, how are you going to replace the tires when you drive on a road with potholes?
Yeah, that's
true. You know what I mean? And anybody who owns a vehicle knows what it costs to go and replace tires. And often it's not one. You've got to replace at least two.
Yep.
And if you're driving a 4x4, you've probably got to replace all four.
Yeah.
Because they have to wear evenly.
Yeah.
It's the way the vehicle works. So, look, owning a vehicle has a holding cost, whether you like it or not. It's what it is. So you must determine what you can afford.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. They're definitely not an investment. It's a glorified rental. They do depreciate. So you must understand that you're going to have to constantly replace a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
And when you're in debt, it becomes a lot more difficult. But before I get to the issue of debt, I'm not going to say consider this.
Don't worry, you can go. We know that a bar is coming.
A motor vehicle for most of us represents a private mode of transport.
Yes.
It's not a business vehicle. We use our vehicle to get to work. We use our vehicle to get back from work. We do that for 5 days or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And then you're going to use it to get to church or whatever your entertainment is or whatever you're going to do. At the end of the day, it's a private cost.
Sure.
So it's a hard cost. You're going to pay for it after you've paid tax on your salary as well.
Yep.
Okay. Now, it may be, and I'm not going to go into that too much this morning, but it may be that you have a business application. Fine. So, yes, the costs of the vehicle can be deducted and it might save you some income tax. But remember, all the income tax you save today comes back to you later when you sell the car.
Yep.
Okay? You're going to pay that tax back, which means you've got to reinvest in another vehicle.
Yeah.
But that conversation is not for today. I don't want to go there. What I want to talk about is the fact that for many people, they can't start out buying a vehicle cash, or they have to have a vehicle, so they're kind of forced into that situation.
Yeah.
But the Bible in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7 makes a categoric statement. And it's a little bit unfortunate for those who don't want to read it, because there's a full stop at the end, which means it's a statement.
Yes.
And it says, the rich rule over the poor.
Yep.
And the borrower is servant to the lender.
lender.
So the minute you go and borrow money from a bank or anybody to buy a vehicle, you've put yourself into debt and you've put yourself into a situation where you're the servant of the lender.
Yeah.
So the lender has terms.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's sometimes, though, we don't have an option. It may be, and if I look at my personal life, my first car I had to do with debt.
Yep.
But by doing it correctly, eventually I got to a point where I could buy a car cash.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when you get
much
to
better.
that point, the first car that I bought for Janita cash, that day was glorious.
Yeah.
We drove off the showroom floor with a vehicle paid for.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Praise God.
And we still do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, you've got to, if you have to buy a vehicle and you have to get debt because you don't have any other way to do it, then the question is, well, how much debt do you get? And then how do you finance the vehicle? And over what period do you finance the vehicle? And what is the thinking around that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we can theorize about this quite a lot, but I have some personal views. And on this podcast, I'm just going to give some personal views. For you out there, you may not be in agreement with me. No problem. Do it your way. But here are my thoughts. What normally happens when you go to buy a car is that especially nowadays, the interest rate that you're going to pay, the prime interest rate is now 10.5%.
Yeah.
That's high.
Yeah.
But you're not going to pay 10.5% because actually the bank knows that they're financing something that is not worth its trade-in value when you drive it off the floor.
Yep.
Because you could have an accident in the next half an hour. Okay, so they understand there's a lot of risk. So they're normally going to charge you prime plus. So you're going to pay more than the prime rate, number one. Number two, the question is, over what period do you finance the vehicle? I've just bought a car, okay, which I paid most of it cash. I've only got a little bit that I owe, very little bit, relating to the actual purchase cost of the car. But the bank want to finance the vehicle now over 6 years.
Yeah, they want to extend it.
Yes, that seems to be the standard way that they do that.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I think that you should finance a vehicle, if you're going to finance it, of a maximum of 2 to 3 years. And I'll come to explain why I say that. So they're saying 6 years, but if you think about it, in 6 years' time, probably at least another 2 models have come out.
Yep.
There aren't parts available for your vehicle anymore, so how are you going to service it?
Yep.
And you're still paying for it.
Yeah.
So to me, that makes absolutely no sense. You can finance it over 6 years, but pay it off over 3.
Pay it off as quick as possible.
Which means you always pay more. Now, when we spoke about paying the other day about paying your bond or investing, one of the important things to understand with debt, you never, ever, ever pay what the bank says.
Yeah, always more.
You pay more.
Yeah.
Always. So whatever finance facility you go and negotiate for your vehicle, make sure that you can afford to pay more than what they're asking for, because you're going to pay it off then over a lesser period.
Yes.
So if you finance a vehicle over 6 years, don't buy a vehicle that you can afford over 6 years. Buy a vehicle that you can afford over 3 years. Get a 6-year term, fine, but pay it off over 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's basically the way that you must work. It's quite an important consideration. Now I want to Niall, use an example if I can. I'm going to talk some numbers, but I'm going to kind of try and round the numbers off so that it makes some sense.
If I may, Dad, sorry. Yeah, we're going to have a moment for questions as well before we close off today. We'll try and cater for some space. So if you do have questions, just maybe write them down. And when we get to that segment of questions, please do put them in the chat when we ask for them so we can try and answer them as quick as possible to really make this time of value to you.
Absolutely. So let's just use an easy example. Let's say I'm going to buy a car for 500,000 Rand.
Sure.
And I'm going to pay the prime rate.
Yep.
Maybe I'm able to negotiate that.
Yeah.
And by the way, never just accept the interest rate that the bank gives you.
Yep.
You must negotiate.
Sure.
And you must explain why that's too expensive.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm a good customer.
Yeah.
I've got good credit rating. I've put down a decent deposit, so that a bit of imagination is necessary.
Okay.
Right? However, let's just assume you're going to be paying 10.5%, and let's assume also that being a good steward, you have saved up money and you're going to put in 100,000 Rand as a deposit.
Sure.
So actually you're only going to borrow 400.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay it over 5 years. Well, what that effectively means is that you are going to have to pay, it works out at about 8,598 Rand. Call it 8,600 Rand a month. That's what you're going to pay. So if you calculate that interest over that 5-year period, that car with interest is not costing you 500,000 Rand. It's going to cost you 615.
Yeah.
That's the true cost
That's
of the car
cost.
because of the debt.
Yep.
Debt is not free. It has a cost. It's called usury. The Bible talks about it.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if you bought that same car, and this is going to be important to remember, if you bought that same car with 100,000 Rand deposit at a 10.5% prime rate that you negotiated, and you paid off over 3 years, with interest, the car is going to cost you 568,000
Already, yeah.
So there's a massive saving
Yeah.
just by paying it off, obviously, over a lesser period. So it makes sense, just before we even worry about trade-in values, it makes sense to pay it off over a lesser period.
Yeah.
You save the interest. It's kind of common sense.
Yeah.
Our problem now is that we're buying a car to impress the social set.
Correct.
So we're forced into a 6-year period.
Yep.
And actually, I'm going to get to an explanation of a trade-in just now, but when you get to the end of that period, you don't have any value.
Yeah.
So one of the things that in order to help you, in inverted commas, afford the car that your heart is wanting, because here's the other problem. A car is generally not a dispassionate purchase. It's a very passionate purchase.
For sure.
Put another way, there's a lot of emotion involved
Attached to
here.
it, yes.
I mean, it's like for me when I go into a guitar shop. Okay, it's just you can't help yourself. You know what I mean? You see all these guitars and you want them all, and you want the best one, right?
course.
And you're going to find a way.
To get the best one.
You're going to find a way to get the best one, and so it is with a vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what the salesman says to you is he says to you, that's not a problem. Okay. So understand, this is the car you want. Instead of, you can afford 500, so why don't you buy a 1 million Rand vehicle? A 1 million Rand vehicle.
Yeah.
And what you do is that we're going to guarantee a trade-in for you in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
And we will give you a guaranteed trade-in of 500,000. So actually, you're buying a vehicle for 1 million, but you're only paying for a vehicle for 500,000.
Yeah.
So actually, now you're buying a vehicle for 1 million Rand, you're still only paying 8,600 Rand over the 5-year period. The problem is at the end of that period,
You get a surprise.
yeah, what's going to happen? You're going to take the vehicle back to him. He's going to give you a check for 500,000, and then he's going to say, "But give it back to me because you owe that, basically."
Yep.
To settle the vehicle.
Yep.
So in 5 years' time, you're back on the altar of the vehicle salesman.
Yeah.
And you never get off that. So actually what you've done is you've paid rent over 5 years, and at the end of that 5-year period, you've got to start again, which means you will never get to a situation where you can buy a car cash. And what I find in the US, for example,
The leasing options. and
the
stuff.
leasing option, and this is exactly what that leasing option is, except that residual of 500,000, that guaranteed trade-in, isn't actually guaranteed
Sure.
because it depends on the mileage that
Oh, yeah,
you
how
drive.
far you've driven.
Correct. And if you're driving too much mileage, then it starts eroding.
Crazy.
Which means you are going to be underwater when you get to the end of that
Yeah,
5-year
you're in
period,
trouble.
and then you want to start a new vehicle. So actually now you're starting in the negative.
Yeah.
Okay. Our system here seems to be a little bit more friendly, but nevertheless, you never get out of debt.
Sure.
You're in debt now for the rest of your life, as far as vehicles are concerned.
Yeah.
So if we take an example here and we take that 500,000 rand vehicle, and the question is, well, then at what rate does it erode in value? Well, my rule of thumb, 20% a year.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, when you buy a vehicle and you drive it off the showroom floor, take 20% off the value
Already,
of the
straight
vehicle.
away.
Just take it off.
Yeah.
Because when you bring it back, obviously they're going to account for the fact that this is now a pre-owned vehicle.
Of course.
I mean, I understand if it's just a few thousand kilometers
Yeah.
you've driven, it's not so bad. But in principle, that is the rate your vehicle depreciates. And it doesn't depreciate on a straight line basis. So it doesn't reduce a 500,000 rand vehicle reducing at 20%. That's 100,000 rand a year. So end of year one, it's worth 400,000. It doesn't mean at the end of year two, it's now worth 300,000. But what happens is after 3 years, my experience, after buying vehicles my whole life, after 3 years, that rate of depreciation accelerates.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because obviously the vehicle's getting older.
Older, and bringing out more models.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if you've had accidents, if you've had all of those type of things, that just makes it more aggressive.
Yeah.
But let's take a simple example now. Let's say that your car reduces by 20% a year, straight line, so it's 100,000 a year if you buy a 500,000 rand.
Sure.
Well, that means at the end of year three, your vehicle's now worth 200,000 rand.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Okay. Now let's assume you have financed that vehicle over 5 years.
Okay.
Not 6. You said to the bank, no, I'm going to do it over 5 years. And you've paid it over 5 years, which means you made the mistake of paying the bank what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Okay. So and in our example, it was 8,600 rand a month. Okay. So that's what you're paying. Well, how much do you owe the bank at year 3 when you want to trade in your vehicle? Because assuming you want to trade in your vehicle at year 3. Okay, you're going to be owing the bank at that particular point in time. You're going to be owing the bank 185,000 rand. I've worked it out. So now let's just work it out. Your trade-in value is 200,000 rand. You still owe the bank 185,000 rand.
Yeah.
Because all you could afford was a vehicle over 5 years.
Yeah.
So 8,600 was the maximum. Because remember, over and above that, you've got your servicing, you've got your
course,
fuel,
all
you've
of
got
those
everything,
yeah.
insurance, everything. Okay? And fines.
Yeah.
If you
For those that drive fast.
naughtily, if that's a word. So the trade-in, the salesman says, I will give you 200,000 rand for this vehicle. But you've got to give 185 to the bank. So you're left with 14 to 15,000 rand.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to put down on your replacement
Yeah.
vehicle. Had you decided that actually I can afford to pay this vehicle over 3 years, you would have needed 13,000 rand
Yeah.
a month. Okay? It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you could afford it.
Sure.
Okay, because that's the vehicle you chose. You've looked at your income. You understand what your family needs. You understand the cash that you need. I can afford 13,000 rand over 3 years for this vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, then at the end of the year 3, how much would you owe the bank? Nothing.
Exactly.
You've paid it off.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a trade-in of 200.
Yeah, and you have value there.
So now your adventure starts.
Yeah.
In getting out of debt as far as vehicles are concerned, because now you've got 200,000
put
rand
down
for
on
the
the
new
next one.
vehicle.
Yeah.
Now the arguments against me would say, yes, but vehicle prices have gone up, and look, vehicle inflation is ridiculous. All of that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that is true.
Yeah.
But at least I've got 200,000 rand
To put down something.
whereas I had nothing.
Yeah.
But I had to pay 13,000 rand
Per month for 3 years.
for 3 years. So the conclusion to this discussion at this point is that it's best to actually save up until you can buy a vehicle
Yep.
and pay for it cash.
That's right.
If you need the vehicle now, buy it low. If your friends won't come to have dinner with you because they don't like your vehicle, or they won't get into your car because they don't like your vehicle, they're not your friends.
Correct. That's right.
And you know, the truth is, in our social set, not everybody around us is invested in our success.
It's true.
they invested in their success.
Very true.
And they will hold you to a standard that you can't afford just so that you can be in their social set. And that is a fatal, fatal trap.
Yeah.
Rather buy down, pay cash. At least you've got trade in for the next one. If you are going to take debt, make sure that you take debt within what you can afford, because you are now the servant to the lender.
Yeah.
But also make sure that you never pay it off according to the finance agreement. You pay it off quicker. And my rule of thumb for a vehicle is over 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
That's been my personal experience. Because after 3 years, the aggressive reduction in trade-in value of the car makes it not worth it. Because after 3 years, you have to be making a decision, am I going to drive this vehicle for...
Yeah, just until it can't be driven anymore.
Until it can't be driven. You know, in our ministry, the vehicle, the Jeep that I was driving, we bought in 2014. And I traded it in now.
Yeah, last year. Well, no, this year.
Yeah. So that was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Because we bought it cash.
Yeah.
But we made a decision that we would drive the vehicle until it is done.
Yeah, until it can't be driven anymore.
Yeah. Okay, and get value out the vehicle that way. And then the money that you save over that period, you can use to buy another one.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's good.
So the general conclusion, just before I move to the next part, the general conclusion is pay it cash, rather buy down. If you're gonna do it with debt, you can finance it over 10 years if you like, but pay it off over 3.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Pay it off over 3. It's very, very important. Some of these finance and this is also important. Make sure that when you negotiate your finance agreement with the bank, that you actually make sure that it is a finance agreement that allows you to pay it in quicker than the finance agreement without penalty. You see, a bank allocates money to lend to you.
Yes.
And they budget on the interest they're going to earn. So the quicker you pay it off, the less money they're going to make.
Yeah, they don't like that.
They don't like that. So you have to make sure that the facility, the agreement, allows you
for you to pump money in as much as you can. When you've got free money, put it in there and get it done.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the day, that is the story about buying a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
But I want you to consider, Niall, I want you to consider one other thought. You were prepared to pay 8,600 Rand over 5 years. You were prepared to pay 13,000 Rand over 3 years.
Yeah.
That's what you could afford. Well, when I was preparing this, I thought, let me just do some calculations.
Yeah.
What happens if you decide, you know what, I'm going to save up and buy a smaller car cash, but instead of getting into debt for the vehicle, I'm going to buy an investment property.
And put that in.
And rather put my 8,600 Rand into that, or rather put my 13,000 Rand a month into that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I was going to spend it anyway.
Sure.
So now we understand that with an investment property, you're probably going to put a tenant in there. Like, let's say you buy a flat.
Yeah, and you get a rental income.
Yeah, let's say you're going to buy a flat for 750,000 Rand. I'm just using that in theory, that figure. And I'm going to pay for it over 10 years, right? I'm going to get a tenant in there. Look, I've got insurance, I've got repairs, but I've got all of those things with the motor car anyway.
Exactly.
But at least I've got a tenant to help me pay my 8,600 or my 13,000 Rand, depending the period over which I'm going to do this. Okay. So for the sake of this example, let's just ignore any income you're going to make from the property.
Okay.
Because you're going to spend the money buying the car anyway.
Yes.
So if you bought a flat, for example, for 750,000 Rand, or even just a tract of land for 750,000 Rand, and it grew at only 5% a year. And so it's growing at less than the interest you would pay the bank, okay? But it's growing at 5% a year. And you put in 100,000 deposit, the same way that you were going to do on your car.
Vehicle,
Now, if you did that and you financed it over 10 years, let's just say 10 years, because it's not a house, you're buying basically an investment. So let's say you're going to finance it over 10 years. Well, at the end of 3 years, you would owe the bank 520,000 Rand. So you borrowed 650. The cost was 750. You put in 100, which you were going to do on your car anyway. You borrowed the 650. And after 3 years, and you're paying off prime, 10.5%. At the end of 3 years, you would have to give the bank 520,000 Rand to get out.
Okay.
But the property is going to be worth, growing at 5%.
Value.
Yeah, it's going to be worth about 868, call it 870,000 Rand.
Yeah.
So if you sold it at the end of year 3, you would get 870,000 Rand. You would get your 100,000 Rand deposit back you put in, and you would pay the bank their 520. You would be richer by 248,000 rand.
There you
With
go.
your car, you haven't got anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you got to buy another one.
Yeah.
Okay? So at the end of the day, you've increased in wealth. Now, if you took that same example, so you would be worth about 248, call it $250,000.
Yeah.
You would have increased your personal wealth. If you did the same thing and you financed it over 10 years, okay, but you decided, I'm going to pay what I would have paid on a car over 3 years,
Yeah.
which is 13,000 Rand a month, because I had allocated that in my budget
Towards the car.
anyway.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to pay it into an investment property. Well, then I'd owe the bank 342,000 Rand after 3 years. So actually, I sell it now for the 870 odd, I'm rounding it out. I get my 100,000 Rand deposit back. I pay the bank 342. I've increased in wealth by 426,000 Rand.
Yeah, that's the system.
And that's the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're using debt for something that actually has investment value as opposed to a car which depreciates.
Yeah, that's it.
It's quite important.
Yeah.
It's an important principle. So at the end of the day, we got 14 and a half minutes I've done this quite quickly, and we can have questions.
Yeah, it's
but
incredible.
At the end of the day, what is the answer?
Yeah.
Buy a cheap car, man. I understand you want a safe car.
For sure.
So you don't want to be silly. But buy a cheaper car and rather put your money into something that's going to help you and make your family more wealthy.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
It's incredible. And I think at the same time, when we talk about property, we talk about those elements of the investment property, whether it's rental, whether it's just purchasing land. It's always going to appreciate because it's becoming, the availability of it is less and less.
God only made the earth one size.
Yeah.
It's not getting bigger. It's not getting smaller.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the end of the day, the more land you can own, the more value you're going to have.
Yeah.
It's simple economics, supply and demand.
And it's a biblical perspective as well, that we're not meant to be ones that borrow. We're supposed to lend.
Yes.
And I also think about the Jewish people, because that's their perspective.
Yes.
As well, that they're not renters, they're owners.
Yes.
And we understand we're not owners, we're stewards, but that's their mentality, that we're Jews, we don't rent, we own, we purchase. And when it comes to this topic of property as well, I mean, this is how you build wealth. This
Absolutely.
is how, and it's this type of, this is stewardship 101, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Kingdom builders. I know there's many of you that understand this concept, but for some of you, maybe this is the first time that you're hearing this, because we measure somebody's wealth on the basis of what they're driving, not realizing that they don't own anything.
No.
But then you get the type of people that when you look at their portfolio and their property, you realize, oh my word, there is wealth here. And it only appreciates in value. That beautiful Land Rover that I so love, and I love Land Rovers and I love these types of cars, all it does is just begins to nosedive.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's such a perspective change, and this is how we begin to change the future of our families.
No. I mean, there's an individual that I have a personal friendship with who is a motor car dealer.
Yeah.
Okay. So as much as I knock motor car dealers, I'm not knocking motor car dealers, because here we have a situation where this guy has made a living selling motor vehicles, but his wealth isn't in the profitability of selling motor vehicles. It's in the properties which his motor car businesses have been able to afford.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
And so actually he actually is in property, he's not in motor vehicles.
He's used that as a way to get into the property.
It's the same as McDonald's is not in hamburgers, it's in property.
Correct.
And particularly corner properties.
Yeah. And I don't think people often see that. They don't realize. Have you ever noticed where a McDonald's is positioned? Have you ever noticed that they're purchasing? It's the property that they're interested in. We're so thinking about the food, and it's behind that. It was the strategy of possessing the property.
Correct.
It's
The hamburger patties pay for the property.
Yeah, there you go.
The wealth is in the property, not in the hamburger patties. Okay,
incredible.
And so this is it's a basic principle, and the Bible also Solomon talks about you accumulate wealth gradually.
That's right.
And that is what the stewardship is about. It's gradual. So I'm not suggesting don't buy a nice vehicle, but buy the vehicle that you can afford.
Yes.
And the way that you buy the vehicle must enable you to eventually get to a point where you've got enough trade in order to buy the next one cash. And it might be that even the one you buy cash, you're buying down slightly. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
I
fine.
think what you'll find as well, Dad, is that when we understand these principles and these concepts, but also you grow in God, you realize that none of these things, that the vehicle stops meaning anything
It
to
means
you.
nothing.
And when everything becomes nothing, God gives you everything. You know, when you can drive that 2 million rand vehicle, but it's just a vehicle.
And then there's also this: you can't give away what you still owe money on.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
So then
It's
you're
not yours to
paying
give.
lip service to this belongs to God. No, it doesn't. Belongs to the bank.
Yeah.
You can't give it away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an important
It's
principle.
this is an incredible conversation, and I hope that this is really blessing you. We've got a couple of moments today, and I want to encourage you, if you've got any questions pertaining to this topic or anything that you would like to ask, please right now, if you could go ahead and type it in the comment section or in the chat, our team will be sure to pin it so that we can ask my dad the questions today.
Sure.
And just to bring some help to you, I hope that you've gleaned something from this conversation. I personally don't know any other Christian organizations that sets a platform for this, and that's why Kingdom Builders is here. It's not only to speak in the lane of, spiritual realities, but also practical application of biblical wisdom so that we can make good decisions in our businesses, in our future plans, because this is not a season for diminishing, but increasing. And we've got to increase the right way so that we can build the kingdom. We're not interested in building Babylon. We're interested in building the kingdom. And this is why we've got to understand these principles. We've got to understand these concepts. I'm always encouraged to see a lot of the Kingdom Builders family. They're in different industries.
Absolutely.
Some are in banking, some are in the commercial, some are in sales. And what's amazing is that because you gain understanding, you understand, like Daniel, how to thrive even amidst Babylonian systems.
Absolutely.
We don't have to escape these realities, but we learn through wisdom to be able to thrive even amidst them, like Daniel. So
just before you do this question, which we see very quickly, in Proverbs chapter 1, from about verse 2, Solomon talks about the fact that we need instruction in wise thoughtfulness and in wise dealing.
That's right.
And that is stewardship 101. And so that is exactly, to this point, on this platform, this is something we're wanting to share ideas. And there's lots of views on lots of things, but it's about sharing ideas about stewardship. It's such a critical element for us as Kingdom Builders.
I think one of the things, and then I'll ask you this question, I want to give you a moment. Go ahead, type in the chat right now. Any kind of question you have, even pertaining to content or vehicles or anything that you're wanting to know, you can go ahead and put it in the comment section. But if I may, one of the things that you made mention of is that sometimes when we purchase vehicles, it becomes an emotional thing.
Yeah.
I also want to say this, and I've learned this sometimes the hard way, and I've applied it across my life, that when emotions are high, wisdom is low.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes, if you're going to buy a vehicle, don't make emotional decisions, because you might make a decision out of emotion, and that's when your wisdom is at the lowest point.
Oh, it is.
And so sometimes it's good to take a nap before you make a decision, business-wise as well. First question. Dad, here's the first question. Question number 1. If you've already bought a car and you can't afford it, is it easy, or can you take it back? I'm guessing, is it easy to take it back, or can you take it back?
Well, I'm assuming it's a car that you financed by this question.
Yeah.
Because otherwise...
If you can't afford it,
You can't afford it. Well, what you've got to do is to make a very careful assessment, and you get a couple of quotes on this, to understand what is the trade-in value, so that you can understand what you need in order to exit. Because it depends on how many years you've been in the agreement, etc. It depends what the terms. You could have a residual, you could have those things. So everything is going to be determined by what you can actually sell the car for, so that you can get out. And you're going to need, don't believe the first salesman that you go to. You need to, I remember when I was going to trade in my car, the first trade-in quote I got, I thought, these people are mad. This is crazy. There's no ways I'm ever going to accept that. And because I held off and got some other views, I managed to actually multiply that to a much bigger number.
There we go.
So that is the first advice I'd give. You have no alternative. That's what you got to do.
Question number 2, Dad, question number 2. What would your advice be for someone who has a balloon payment? The person misread the agreement and was not aware of it. They have 1 year to finish paying off and now have to deal with a balloon payment.
Okay, so there are really two options here. The one would be like my first answer, is you need to get a very good understanding what the trade-in value is. If you're in one where it's guaranteed on that balloon payment, then it's not too much of a problem, because basically you're going to hand the car in and walk out of the shop. Okay, but the other one with a balloon payment here would would really be, can you refinance that balloon payment?
Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on how many years you've been going. Okay, you've got 1 year to go, but maybe it might make sense for you to try and refinance that balloon payment if you're not going to have enough guaranteed trade in to settle it.
Sure.
Okay, so then you might need to refinance it, and then because you're now only refinancing the balloon payment, you accelerate your payments into that.
Okay.
So that actually, because the calculation you got to do is, how long am I going to refinance that over? What do I perceive the trade-in value to go to work? And that determines how much you've got to pay in, so that at least you're going to come out with something at the end.
Got you.
So it's a bit of a moving target calculation. But I would suggest that those are your two answers.
Here's an interesting question. And again, if you've got questions and you're watching this right now, I see we've got about 74 Kingdom Builders on today, which is incredible. Thank you again for joining us. So we've still got a couple of moments. We've tracked well today with the content and just such value. I see a lot of you typing in the comment section. Thank you for this. You're very welcome. We appreciate you. And this is why we want to invest in the Kingdom Builders of Faith Church and the Global Faith family. Here's a very interesting question. This has been a lot of topics of debate, discussion for me personally, because I'm very interested in it as well, especially as we see what's happening within South Africa. So here's the question, Dad. I'll be interested to hear what your concept is on this. With the growth of Asian vehicles in South Africa, is it wiser to buy a new, better value spec Haval or Cherry or Jetour versus opting for the used trusted car? For example, let's use the concept of a used Ford or a Toyota that seems to really hold its value for a longer period of time, whereas, you know, if I wanted to buy a Mercedes and have all of these specs, it's going to cost me R1 million, but I can go and buy a Haval that is 350,000 Rand. It's Asian, but it has all of the same specs. What's your opinion?
I'm looking around for a suit of armor, because this is a dangerous question.
It is.
Because
it's very
it doesn't
interesting.
matter what I answer here, somebody's going to dislike me.
Sure, but go for it. I'll add my 2 cents on top of your.
It depends what you're after.
Yes.
A motor vehicle is really a bit of an emotional buy, because it's about comfort, it's about family safety, it's about all of these things.
Yeah.
So it really depends. But the question also opting for a used trusted car. Okay. So do you buy new or do you buy used? That's a personal choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it depends who you buy from.
Sure.
For me, there's only 1 or 2 places in the whole of East London I would consider buying a used vehicle from. You know, but a lot of people swear by that's what they do. They don't buy new; they rather buy used, because actually they recognize a vehicle is rent anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is very much a personal choice. But coming to this question about the influx into our South African market of these Asian vehicles, well, I think what's important to also understand, you might have some people watching on this podcast that swear by, you know, their personal preference is to go for the German make.
Sure.
Okay.
They like
for them,
star.
that's the trusted make. Yes. You know, but some of these Asian vehicles, what a lot of people don't realize, are manufactured in Asia, but they are German.
Correct.
Actually.
Yeah.
But they, in such a way, don't ask me how it works, but in such a way that you're able to get all the goodies you were getting in your traditional German vehicle, you're getting them in these so-called Asian vehicles.
Yeah.
Which I say so-called because they're manufactured there, but actually it's German parts for many of them.
For sure.
So what's the answer? Do your research.
That's right.
At the end of the day, do your research, and whatever gels with you, go with that.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say as well, because it's been a heavy debate, or not debate, but discourse and discussion for me personally with a lot of people that I know just across South Africa as well, as we're seeing more of these Asian cars come in, and I think it's because the Asian market or the Asian business gurus have found a gap.
Absolutely.
Where a lot of the others are holding to their price figure. They've kind of noticed the times, and they've brought something in that type of niche market and that cost as well, or that price point. I think it comes down to doing research and being confident. And I think, again, what was mentioned is trusted. So I know for me personally, when it came to some of the Asian cars, I was a bit apprehensive in the beginning. But now as you see more and more being brought out, you start gaining more wisdom, you start doing more research. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Don't make hasty decisions.
No.
You know, take your time, research models, get reviews. These are all things that we need to do. in all elements of life, even in the context of property as well. Do you know where East London is growing out to right now?
Absolutely.
Where is the market increasing? Where's the land increasing?
Absolutely.
Let's quickly do this, Dad. You're going to have about 30 seconds and then I'm going to end. Does someone
Yes.
need to finish paying off the car before they can trade it in? Or is there a certain point during the finance term when they're allowed to trade it in? You have to answer this in 15 seconds.
You can trade it in any time you like.
There we go.
What is going to dictate to you is what is the trading value today, how much do I owe today, and that will determine whether that decision makes sense.
There we go. Awesome. We want to say thank you for joining us today, and I'm so sorry we have to finish off this quickly, but thank you so much for joining us. There are details on your screen. Some of you have been asking or querying how you can partner with Kingdom Builders. There are details on your screen right there. You can take a picture of it, screen grab it, and if you would like to sow a seed and stand with us in
Amen.
Kingdom Builders as we build the kingdom of God together, you can go ahead and do that. Dad, thank you for joining me today. I know you have to rush off now to your next engagement, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I just love being with all of our Kingdom Builders.
Awesome. We want to see you next week during Revival 26. Please note there will not be a podcast next week, Tuesday, due to the fact that we are going to be in conference. We are going to be having 10 a.m. sessions. There is going to be 6 p.m. sessions. We've got ministers and leaders gatherings next week as well for breakout sessions. So we hope to see you there this coming Sunday. We start. We love you very much. May your Tuesday be blessed.
Amen.
Go forth and prosper in Jesus' mighty name. We love
Amen.
you. Shalom in Jesus' name.